Before you go to Ethiopia or Kenya, there are some things that you must know. The world is flat, there's information everywhere, you cannot afford to make mistakes. It is my vision, my purpose to show people the power of Africa. And these two countries are one of the two countries that people are always deliberating about. Ethiopia, Kenya, which is better? What's a better place to live in? What's the comparison? In this video, I'm going to be sharing with you some of these comparisons. And at the end of the day, you'd be able to make up your mind. Which is better for me to live, to visit, just to know about? Kenya or Ethiopia? Now, both of these countries have been in the limelight. Kenya, everybody talks about it. Ethiopia, so very recently, in the last couple of 10 years, everybody has gone crazy about Ethiopia. The United Nations, a lot of foreigners that are coming to Africa always thinking Ethiopia. Ethiopians are also some of the races that have gone to different parts of the world. I think after Nigerians in Africa, Ethiopians tend to travel a lot across the world. So Ethiopians have really started to create a big name for themselves. Anyway, at the end of this video, you're going to be very clear what country is better. Ethiopia, the beautiful, or Kenya, the beautiful. Okay, I did that there so that you have it at the same level. But let's get into it. I'm going to structure this into like 5 or 6 points. I'm going to first of all start by the cost of living, which is more expensive. Number 2, I'm going to talk about activities and the things you can do in those countries, right? If you're going there, are you going to have a good time or are you just going to sort of dull out, right? What are those kind of things you can do if you compare both of them? Another thing I'm going to talk about is the culture. How are the people, you know, how are they? What's their demeanor? What's their mannerism? What do you have to be aware of? You know, they're just smiling, you know. So I'm going to give you some of that tea as well, comparing both countries. And then I'm also going to talk about language and communication. And then I'm going to bring us into food. And then I'm going to end around, people like to see color. How do the people look? You know, Ethiopians, people are always talking, Ethiopians, how do they look? I've heard a lot about Ethiopians, you know, do they look good? I heard they're some of the most beautiful people in the world, you know, so there's a lot of that. So we're going to delve into all of these things, and at the end of the day, you'd be able to really make up your mind. Let's get into it. These are things you need to know before going into Ethiopia or Kenya. One thing that always gets to me in Ethiopia, starting with Ethiopia, is the way the people look. Ethiopians do not look African. They look very different. They look like a fine mix of Arabians and Africans. There's just a little bit of something going on somewhere. They could pass more for Indians than they could pass for like Black Africans. Their facial features are different. I mean, I have somebody that went to Ethiopia and he told me, he said, Dexter, those are some of the most beautiful people I have seen in my entire life. And I agree with him. I think Ethiopians are beautiful. The ladies have very fine features. If you thought that Rwandese and people from Rwanda were beautiful, you can imagine like that kind of race mixed with maybe Arabian sort of Mediterranean kind of blood. And it gives you that bounce, you know, the nasal features, their noses, their teeth, the shape of their faces. It's really, really chiseled in there, right? And you find it. And this is not just women, by the way, because people are already seeing like a woman I'm describing. It's women, it's men, you know, they sort of really have those kind of features. And their hair is not like, you know, it's not like type C hair, you know, 4C hair like African women have or like men have. Their hair is more soft and silky. So there's something about it. So he went there like, I've never seen anybody in my life so beautiful. Come on, chill. I told him, sit down. I was like, okay, but that was his feel, and I agree. Ethiopians are some of the most beautiful people in the world. If I compare that to Kenyans are also beautiful people, but beautiful in a different way. Now, because of diversity in Kenya, which is also the same in Ethiopia, you get to see people, if you want people that are maybe well-rounded and for you're looking at shape as beauty, then there are tribes like in Kenya that you can get all of that with your luos and the shapes and all of that. So if you're a sucker for shapes, like people that say, I want to go to South Africa and look for a rounded woman, or I want to go and look for someone that has bum, you know, So people sort of, there are races in Kenya that sort of look at that. Then there are people with great faces, you have the tribes, you know, and all of that through. You also have the mixed bloods, right? Because in Kenya as well, you have Indians, right? You know, which stay towards down the coast. Then you have people that are, there's like different races. So in Kenya, it's sort of not spoiled for choice because the dominant races are the ones that are your Kikuyus, your Luos, your Luyas, and you see them as well. So they're beautiful, but if I must rank unique beauty that sort of strikes you and jumps at you, right, that you can't miss, I would give that playing field to Ethiopia. So if you're thinking about traveling, you're looking for beautiful people that are very unique to see in Africa, then you really want to think about Ethiopia. So for that round, I'll say Ethiopia wins that. That does not mean that Kenyans are not beautiful. For me, it's about strike. What strikes you like, boom, you know, at that minute. Yeah, so in that case, I do have some people that have lived in Ethiopia for a while, and after they live there for a while, it grows on them and they see Ethiopians very normal because they've lived there. But I think when you see something a lot, you get used to it. So they tell me sometimes, Ethiopians are okay, they're okay. But I think it's because they've lived there for a while. If you're a visitor, and you're going to Ethiopia for the first time, boom, there's gonna be something it does for you. You know, so Ethiopia wins that round for me, hands down. Number two, when it comes to culture, I think that if you want to experience like deep culture and have a touch of an experience of culture, there are very few countries in Africa that can do it to you like Ethiopia. Kenya has its touch and its special areas of touching you in terms of culture. You see things like the Maasai, you know, the culture, they jump, they have their cattle, you have tradition where men or kids get castrated in the Kikuyu culture when they're like 13 or 12 years old. There's some deep bouts of culture. In Kenya, you don't necessarily see a lot of, you like ask Kenyans, what's my culture, what's my uniform, what's like my traditional wear. Most Kenyans, when they want to dress traditionally, they wear like West African fabric. The fabric is not necessarily theirs because Kenyans by default, they like to wear like suits and those kind of things. So you don't necessarily look at Kenya and say, that's Kenyan, you know? You see things, the only thing you see are like your Maasai kind of colors, those red blankets, those orange, yellow blankets, a little bit about craft and culture. But culture is not necessarily big and celebrated in Kenya. So if you're looking for culture experience, Kenya is not it. Ethiopia, on the other hand, a country that has never been colonized, can die on their culture. You look at things that are still engraved. There's this Colosseum that we went to in Ethiopia. Things are engraved on it. They have meetings there, by the way. But things were engraved on it. The culture, you can still see it. Their language, every single thing in Amharic, it's written like thunder. You know, it's like Thor just decided to write with his fingers, you know, on the wall. You see those kind of things. Every mark looks like thunder, thunder, you know, and they tell you it is the yak. So there's a lot of culture in Ethiopia. As a matter of fact, Ethiopians look at Ethiopia and they call Ethiopia Abyssinia. That's the name of Ethiopia. By the way, the meaning of Ethiopia, and a lot of Ethiopians probably know this, it means, Abyssinia means like a collection of tribes. Because in Ethiopia, there's about 80 tribes. So many years ago, back in the past, it was called Abyssinia, a collection where diverse tribes come together. So if you go to Ethiopia today, sometimes they would even tell you that Ethiopia is not Africa. That Ethiopia is Ethiopia and Africa is Africa. When they told me that initially, I was very upset. I was like, who do you think you are? You think you are not Africa? Then get the hell out. Okay, maybe not get the hell out. You know, but I was very upset initially. But that's the kind of pride that they have. Their dance, their cultures, what they wear, their colors. It's just amazing. You know, and you sort of see those values carried through. So if you're thinking about culture and experiencing those kind of cultural crafts, Ethiopia is your place to go. Culture so resides in Ethiopia till today that sometimes even in their culture, things like bathing every day is not something that you see. Brushing your teeth like every day. There's some things that are just by culture and default they don't do. One thing that I think with brushing teeth right now, a lot of Ethiopians have started to imbibe the habits of brushing teeth and all of that, which is quite big. And, you know, so people brush their teeth. Don't say, hey, Dexter said Ethiopians don't brush. They do. They brush their teeth. So don't come and talk to me like, hey, you know, they do brush their teeth. But there's still a space, for that. They use a lot of something called mishwak, right, to brush their teeth. So there are different ways to do it. And by the way, who says that using a toothbrush is the only way to brush their teeth? They don't brush with brush, but they clean their teeth, right, which is still there. And you can tell me whether this is true or not. You can drop a comment in the chat. Ethiopians do not believe that you need to bath every single day. They believe that it washes out the oils from your skin. The more you bath, the more you deplete your oils. And it is those natural oils, by the way, that maybe keep your skin supple, keep you beautiful, keep you going amazing. So by culture, they don't want to bath every day, not because they want to be dirty, but because of the belief that you're stripping the beauty away. But when I think about it, it's not false. The more you bath, the more you strip out oil, which is why you have to moisturize, you have to oil, and all of those great stuff. So they do have a point. So there's some of those values that they carry. And they'll tell you, by the way, Dexter, and they'll say, that's why we look this good. Because we don't bath as much as you do. I mean, I'm like, yo, but they have the proof, So I'm like, hey. So there's those cultures. If that's what you're looking for, then you're really going to enjoy that in Ethiopia. Another thing I'm going to talk about now is the number of foreigners, in these two countries. I think these two countries are some of the countries that have the highest number of foreigners in Africa. And that's because the United Nations has very big headquarters in both Ethiopia and in Kenya. And when the headquarters of the UN is somewhere, you get to see a lot of other international bodies coming in. And what happens is that a lot of expats start to trunk into the country. People tend to visit them. So you tend out, if you go to Kenya, you go to Ethiopia, a huge flux of foreigners. So if you want to go to a place where you say, okay, maybe where in Africa can I go to that has more foreigners, that make me feel a bit more comfortable, you can't go wrong with Ethiopia or with Kenya. You're going to sort of be able to see Europeans, Americans that go in there, When I compare both countries together, who has more foreigners, right? But I think that Kenya has a lot of foreigners that come in, and they come in not just for the United Nations. There's also people that come in because of the multinationals that are in Kenya. And because of that, Kenya has more foreigners that are in the country. From the United Nations, from the United Nations bodies, from the international bodies that are already in Kenya, then the multinationals. In Ethiopia has a lot of the UN bodies and international bodies, but spring up in Ethiopia that are not the way they've lived up in Kenya. So because of that, there's more foreigners in Kenya than in Ethiopia. But in Addis itself, you see a lot of foreigners, and they have a big community. So if you're looking for a place to fit in, what part, which of these two, I think you would fit more in Kenya, and you have a lot more activities to do that is beyond just the foreign community. So in this round, Kenya wins, right? More foreigners, more sort of Caucasians and Europeans getting to fit in and find things to do. Kenya is going to be the place to go. So this round, I'll give it to Kenya in that vein. Food. When I was in Ethiopia, I struggled. I don't normally struggle with food because I eat everything. And in Ethiopia, I had a good time as well. But after like a couple of weeks of being in Ethiopia, I started to tire a little bit of the local food. Because Ethiopian food, I find it very healthy. There's not a lot of varianted colors or variants of colors or variety. There's shiro, which is a big dish made of shiro what is healthy. If you're somebody that likes healthy stuff made from chickpeas, it's an amazing thing. It tastes. If you're from Israel as well, it almost feels like, that hummus, that thing but it's a bit legumish. And it's not a bad taste, but it's eaten almost like 3 times a week. It's eaten every day, and it's eaten with so shiro is the stew, then it's eaten with injera, that sort of flat bread. So after a while, I started getting tired of Ethiopian food. Then they have the plethora of stews, from your misir wort, your lentils, your misir wort, your doro wort, your siga wort, they have a lot of worts. Wort just means stews. So you have all those options. But a lot of those options were expensive. They're more expensive than your shiro. Shiro is like basic, you can access that and eat it. The other ones are pricier, but you have that variety. There's also raw meat. Ethiopians eat raw meat. Yes, I said that. There's some places you can go to and you actually eat like a strip of raw meat and it's spiced and you eat it raw. And they like it. I ate it once. Yes, I'm adventurous like that. I eat everything. I go to countries and I eat everything. You can't show me something in a country that I would say, I'm not trying. I try everything. I tried it. It was okay. I wouldn't try it again. But people like it, right? So with Ethiopia, I found their food a bit more hard to fall into. Kenya, on the other hand, I loved their food. The food was nice. varieties of vegetables, varieties of beans, varieties of, you had like rice, it was good, different times pilau, you have your white rice, you have your pap, or your solid, those kind of hard food like made of corn that you can eat, in that space as well. Almost like what your South Africans would call putu, but so you get things like, in South Africa, it's like your pap or your putu in different, but over here it's like ugali, right? It's corn, and it's not as heavy as like yam and cassava, but so I loved the food. They had meats, they love meat, you had intestines. So when it comes to food and diversity, I really, really enjoyed Kenya. The diversity of food, I didn't tire of it very quickly. I could live there for years and keep on eating, the meals in there. So I really liked it. They also had plantain. If you look for it, you get to see plantain, which is becoming very big, which is like Musa paradiasaka. That's like the scientific name. I know I'm confusing you right now, but that's the scientific name. So they had that in that space as well. So it was good. So when it comes to food, I would give it to Kenya, also because when you go to the areas of the coastal regions and the different areas, you tend to have different coastal dishes, pilau, biryanis that sort of creep through. So you get to enjoy that flavor. In Ethiopia, it is one thing. Everybody across Ethiopia eats the same thing. Whether you say, I'm going to leave Addis Ababa today and fly all the way to another region, Oromia, I'm going to fly you're going to meet the same thing. There's no running away from Ethiopian food. So I think food for me, Kenya wins that round. So think about it if you're traveling, you really want to think about those kind of diversities and things to do. Or bring your own food from your country if you're going to tire, about it. So that's food. Now, recreation. A lot of times we travel and you really want to think, what am I going to do in the country? Am I going to have fun? Are there interesting things to do? Yes, in both of them and in different ways. The kind of activities you're going to do in Ethiopia, and right now, the Prime Minister, Abiy has done some really great work in Ethiopia. Every single time I go to Ethiopia, it changes. Today, this road was not so great. It's there. It's not even about roads anymore, especially in Addis. It's about making the place beautiful. It's like Abiy is trying to create another Saudi Arabia, another Dubai in Addis Ababa, in Ethiopia. He's really cutting edge. The last time I went to the Unity Park, and it was amazing. There were things to do, there was food, there were different things that looked like I was in Alice in Wonderland. For those of you that watch Alice in Wonderland, it looks really nice. Then next to it, there was this thing that looked like a space station, like a science station that looked like this egg in Dubai. I think it was going to be called like a tech station or something. It was in the air. So Ethiopia has really started to push the borders, and it's almost like Ethiopia is trying to say, let me do what no man in Africa has done before within the space of Africa, and they're doing it deliberately. It's almost like it's a mandate to die there, and it's amazing. So if you want to see really regal things and beautiful things on the streets and neatness, Ethiopia is a place that would show that to you. Externally, Ethiopia is beautiful. Kenya, when you get to Kenya, it's also beautiful. You see a lot of natural attractions, greenery, you see animals, statues of animals. You're going into the national park or driving into the city, you see animals and national animals. I say national animals, wild animals, not on the streets, but in the national park. You can't see them, but the national park is in there. So you see some of that. But from an aesthetic perspective, and look, Addis right now, or Ethiopia, especially in Addis, is more beautiful, than Nairobi. You go to some parts of Nairobi, the skyscrapers and some of those buildings are great, but there's a touch of neatness and revelry that Ethiopia has, especially on the outside. In the inside, however, Ethiopia looks bougie outside there at Addis, but the level of quality sometimes in hotels, when you go into the Airbnbs or you go into the houses, it's not as neat and as great as Kenya. Kenya houses inside look nice. Some of them rustic, but a lot of them very modern and developed. So it might not look as bougie outside as Ethiopia does, but when you go inside, the houses look really great. They look really good. Ethiopia, on the other hand, outside looks good, but when you get into some of the houses, the level of development and the level of finesse and perfection is not as great. So I think it's up to you, right? Would you rather go to a city that is beautiful on the outside and inside is probably not as great, but inside, because Ethiopia has great places as well, There's Marriott, there's some hotels that are quite big. Is there Marriott or Protea? There's some big hotels, but they're expensive as well and big, but you pay for what you get. But in Kenya, you can have a certain amount of money and access internal beauty of hotels and finesse and all of that. So that's the way I put it. Because of that in this round, for me, it's not about the external beauty, because after a while you're going to get into the hotel, and for me, or the house. Kenya, you can get it moderately outside, which looks good, but inside is also great. So for that round, I'll give it to Kenya. I think that Kenya, in terms of beauty and how the place looks, then I'll give that to Kenya. I know I was talking about things and places to do, what to do, so I'm going to go back into that right now. So I wanted to just finish the fact that how it looks, I give that round to Kenya because of those reasons. Now I'm going to go back into the kind of activities you can do in Ethiopia, the kind of activities you can do in Kenya. In Ethiopia, you can go to cultural places. The Abyssinia, there's a place called Abyssinia, which is almost like the name of the country, where you can get to dance, experience a buffet of different kinds of the food in there. The Unity Park, the space station I talked about, and all of those things I started talking about. So there's those activities. There's also Kuroftu, which is like a lake where you can go to maybe about 45 minutes away from Addis, and you get to really enjoy there. You go rafting, then there's places even outside. If you go down south, there are places you can go to. There's called 40 Springs. It's green, it's nice, you have a real good. So Ethiopia is a real cool place to go and actually really enjoy those attractions. There's also, Ethiopia is really nice, there are things to do, and they keep springing up every day, yes. So that's my view. In Kenya's terms, however, Kenya, I don't know, I've said this a lot about Kenya. Kenya has your wildlife in Nairobi City. If you want to go to Masai Mara, you can drive out there to go there. If you want to go to Amboseli and have that sort of camp experience. If you want to go to the coast of Mombasa, you can have that experience. If you want to go to Lamu, Latamu, Kenya is just spoiled for choices and things you can always do. All of my friends that live in Ethiopia want to come and live in Kenya sometimes because of the options of things we can do. After 6 months of living in Ethiopia, they're like, oh, we're done. We can't find what to do. But everybody in Kenya, they're like, we can always do different things. There's always things to do, whether it's in Nairobi and those places. So when it comes to activities and things you want to do, Kenya wins the distance. Ethiopia doesn't even sort of come close, to the activities and things you can do. So that round, Kenya. But Ethiopia is really coming up, right? It's really coming up, Now, when it comes to music, clubs, both countries have good clubs. Kenya, better clubs at different levels. So I think that Ethiopian clubs are not as diverse and as many as Kenya. It's a bit more, they play music and they have fun, but I find it a bit not as lively and as fun and as dancey and as free fall as Kenya. In Kenya, you go to a club and people dance. It's really fun and cool. And sometimes they're dancing next to somebody. The body distance is not far away. It just feels very nice. In Ethiopia, I find the distance a bit more. They're a bit more aware, a bit more cautious, especially when they're like foreigners. It's just a bit of a different vibe. Kenya, sort of everybody just dances, whether you're white, whether you're Nigerian. It's just like a mix of a mash of and it's fun. Ethiopians, sometimes you're sensitive to know that I'm different and whatever. It's not that they do not accept you, they do. It's just that you just know that, hey, it's a bit of a different sort of vibe to it, in that space. So club life, I think if you're looking for clubs or you're looking for music and fun activities, then definitely you want to do your Kenya wins that round as well. But Ethiopia is a good place to explore in that area. By and large, when I look at both countries, these are great, fast-growing countries in East Africa. There's some countries in the world that you must go there before you die. Ethiopia is one of those countries. Another of those countries is Kenya. These two countries, you must see it. There's a possibility to combine it in one trip because they're not far away from each other. There are possibilities. I always say in the world, it's so big. The wrongest thing you can do is to live in your bubble and think you stay in your country and you've seen the entire world. There's so much to see. Aladdin was right when he was saying, I will show you the world you gotta see the world. You gotta see Africa. Africa is rising and Africa can rise. I'll see you guys in the next video. Subscribe if you haven't and do all the good stuff you need to do around the video. Notify and all that good stuff. See you in the next one.